Hi, I'm Paul. This is Dave.
Hi, I'm David.
I am a beer drinker and enthusiast, and Dave here is a beer judge and home brewer. And today we're here on Cask Talk to talk about a beer that we have nothing as far as experience with.
Yeah. So it was a beer that we basically went to Wine and More,
Total
right?
Wine and More.
Total Wine and More. Really just kind of caught our eye. We took a look at it. It is made by Plank Beer. It is a Heller Weizenbock, really strong wheat beer. Heller meaning light, so light in color. It's an interesting style, definitely one of my more favorite. I like wheat beers, a lot of the characteristics of wheat beers. What's been your experience with wheat beers, Paul?
I've always liked wheat beers. They do the job. They're reliably, reasonably good tasting beer. You know, your Shock Top, your Blue Moon. So I'm kind of looking forward to something that is not your standard bar fare, so to speak. One thing I will say is when I looked up this company, I really couldn't find much on them other than reviews for their products from other companies like Total Wine and More, Beer Review, or something like that. So we definitely are venturing into a new territory ourselves with this one. Hopefully we like it. If one of us doesn't like it, we will feel free to pan.
So the Weizenbock, so wheat beers, one of the big characteristics of the wheat beers is that banana and clove flavor that you get from the ale yeast. So it's a very yeast-centric beer, in my opinion. The Bock being a little bit more higher alcohol is going to hopefully accentuate some of the more malty flavors. We got a chance to actually look at the recipe on it and notice some things like Munich malt and Vienna malt in it. And those are both really malty, bready, toasty kind of characteristic. So we're very excited to give it a try. So do we want to go ahead and open it up and take a look at it?
Without further ado.
Also to note, it comes in a can, which is a product of Germany coming in a can. So it's kind of a unique take on some craft beer.
I'm completely okay with canned beers. I find they do not have too much fizz in them, whereas bottled beers are almost guaranteed to have too much fizz. And that is a nice color.
It has that kind of cloudy characteristic I noticed right off the bat, typical of wheat beers. So usually suspended wheat, proteins, yeast possibly. Decent amount of head, seems to be dissipating pretty quick, which kind of makes me think that it may be light in some of the body to it. So
yeah, we'll see. It did dissipate pretty fast. As far as the aromas, it is a little floral and a little fruity to me.
yeah, I can smell the clove and the bananas in it. Can you smell that?
The banana, definitely. I don't know about the clove. Well, to the business at hand. It's nice. I think it takes a little warming up too.
Yeah. So a lot of times when it warms up, it'll open up quite a bit.
Well,
So
not just
technically the ale is it's a warmer yeast. So
well, not just
most
warmer
ales
as in
are-
temperature. Like it'd take a couple drinks for me to warm up to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's probably typically served a little bit on the warmer side. I think traditionally these are a little cold.
I like the temperature.
Not very hoppy. So a little bit of bitterness to it, but more on the sweet side.
Yeah, very, very on the sweet side. The recipe was saying they only put the hops in for adding balance, and it's a well balanced beer.
Mhm.
It's just on the sweeter side of things. I know the hops are there. Let me put it that way. I know that they're in the flavor. I just can't really pick them out. They're not strong enough to really be a dominant thing. They're in the background.
I really like it. So the wheat, it's got a little bit of wheat. It's not overly malty. There is a little bit of malt notes in it, fruitiness that you get with some Hefeweizens, but it definitely has that Hefeweizen characteristics.
It's
Good session beer. I could drink it on a hot day.
it's good, and it definitely reminds me of a bock or a double bock. There's definitely like the mouthfeel that's there to me. The flavor, not so much, because the flavor of them are very, very malty. It's a very different flavor, but there's certain something in there that you can tell it's a style like a double bock as far as how it was put together.
Yeah, it's got that higher alcohol level. You can kind of taste it, that it's a little bit on the higher side, a little bit higher sweetness, a little bit higher maltiness, a little bit of alcohol, but it's not overly solvent. It's not hot in any way. So it's really smooth, I think, from the strength of it. And I think if I saw on here, it was like 7.9% alcohol. So it's definitely a
Oh, it'll
higher
plump you.
alcohol beer.
You'll be bummed before you realize it if you're used to drinking something like Budweiser.
For sure, for sure. But it's got some really good character to it. I think if you like wheat beers, you're not going to be disappointed to it. It's going to give you that little bit of banana clovey, but not as strong as like if you're just having a Hefeweizen. But it's got a lot of additional characteristics, some maltiness to it. It really kind of balances well on the stronger side. I think it's even maybe sweeter than most Hefeweizens.
It makes me think of an orange flavor, but without any of the citric to it. That's what I'm kind of picking up. There's a little bit of like a hint of orange to it, but it's like there's none of the citric acid aspect to the orange, which like I said, now that I've had a few drinks, I'm actually enjoying it more than the initial one, and it's good. It's good. This is a beer I could probably have 4 or 5 of before I might decide I want to change flavors, because some nights, I want one beer and then another beer and then a different beer. Some nights I don't really want to change. This, I could probably drink this the entire night.
It's like a session beer is what they usually refer to as something you can drink all night long. And session beers typically 3-4%. They're a little bit lower on the alcohol level, but are smoother, easier to drink. And this is definitely a smooth, easy to drink beer. It's very reminiscent of a Hefeweizen, but you don't really notice the alcohol. I could definitely see that this is something that would sneak up on you. If you got a picture of this at the bar, you would be drinking it, not even realizing you're drinking beer, and then next thing you know, right?
You're walking into walls when you're going to the bathroom.
Yeah, you're calling Lyft for a ride home. I thoroughly enjoy it. What's your closing comments on it?
I like it, to be honest. I mean, I'm enjoying the mouthfeel, the flavor, the aftertaste. I definitely don't have any issues with it. I will say that this is not something I would choose to drink with a heavy meal or shortly after a heavy meal, because this is a heavy beer and you will feel it. It'll bloat you, but not from the carbonation, just from the heaviness of the beer itself.
Yeah, and from a carbonation standpoint, it's moderately carbonated. I mean, I think most Hefeweizens that I drink will almost be more carbonated than it, which is surprising. I was kind of expecting it to be really on that carbonic bite to it. And it's present, but not anything at the level of like a lot of these Hefeweizens will carry. It seems to be pretty well balanced. Like I said, really good beer that I would be happy to drink.
I prefer the lower carbonation of it. So to me, that's a thumbs up from me on that level. And it's not flat feeling or any of that stuff. It's just got enough that you know that it's there. But once again, it's not overwhelming. Nothing about this beer is overwhelming, really.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, from a professional level to it, some of the things that I'm kind of somewhat disappointed on was the head. I really like a really foamy, moussey type head. And I really didn't see that. It was kind of there. It had its presence, but it really kind of didn't leave that what I was looking for, almost like a different substance.
Yeah.
When you're drinking, especially a German beer, it seemed like it was
You know,
really thin.
I can see your point with the head, but it's kind of like drinking a cider that really there's like no head to it, but it's still good.
Yeah. So when you
You
look at
know?
like modern beers, like a lot of lagers, don't really have much head presence. But when you look at like an English style beers, a stout or something like that, that has that really thick head to it,
Bitter.
I really like something like that on a Heffy. And Heffys have a lot of protein in it, being with wheat. There's a lot of leftover proteins that are in it. You can really build that up into the beer itself. Though a lot of commercial beers don't have that. You're going to find that a lot more in some of the homebrew styles when you're out there taking a look at those. So that's my only critique to it. I wish it had a little bit more of that kind of presence to it. Otherwise, enjoyable beer.
I think it's a very
Orangey
enjoyable
notes,
beer.
banana notes.
And according to, I don't know if I said this before, but according to what we found online, the style has actually only been around since like 1907, which I thought was, you know, this seems like a lot of these styles would be older than they are, but the more we look them up, the more we find out, you know, a lot of these different beer styles are 100, 150 years old, you know, which makes me wonder what happened at that time frame that people got more aggressive with different brewing styles, considering that the technology for refrigeration didn't reach its point until
But
much later.
mid-1900s, right? Yeah.
You
So
know, the 40s and the 50s, basically.
there's probably some industrialization, probably getting bigger pots, being able to be easier to make bigger amounts of it, which allowed the average person a better chance of being more commercialized. I definitely think it's a little bit more commercial than I expected, but generally, I think good beer, you know, nice to drink. You know, there's little things that I would tweak probably to make it a little bit better, but
Well, as part of being a craftsman, though, you see
Yeah.
something, you're like, I can do this and this and this. I know because I'm a woodworker and I see things. I'm like, oh, they should have done this and this and this. But the reality is, it's their work and we're just enjoying it, and we can nitpick all day long. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's good beer. It's a quality product as
Yep.
far as I'm concerned.
I'm a big fan of higher alcohol beers, not purely for the higher alcohol, but for what will obviously come out of some of those kind of things, like Baltic porters, Russian imperial stouts,
They provide a
bocks,
heavier
double
flavor,
bocks.
I think, the higher alcohol have a better, stronger flavor.
Mhm.
And when I say stronger, I don't mean like the flavor is like bam, hits you in the face. Like it's more unique and individualized, but at the same time, it can't be ignored.
Yeah, I have a feeling that their attempt to make it light, which is what that Hellas is, and I'll bring this up closer here so you guys can see a color of it. It is a lighter color, and as you get lighter, your choices in the malts that you're using to be able to create that lightness, you know, potentially what you're mixing with it.
They didn't use malt in there really,
Yep.
did they?
Yeah, wheat, malted barley, hops, yeast. So as they make those kind of decisions on it, in regards to what type of malts to be able to create that flavor or to create that look, I think they're giving up some of those kind of flavors that I'm looking for in that higher alcohol beers, which I'm a big fan of. And I really think that in a wheat beer on the, you know, top level of this, that it's decent.
Give it up, give it up. It's
I'm gonna
mine.
bring this up closer so you guys can take a look at it. Plank beer, Heller Weizenbock. It's an ale. It's got the goats on it, which if you're familiar with bocks, you would know the history to that. We can talk about that at a later time where you can look it up. Enjoy the beer. And if you happen to see it at Total Wine and More, why don't you grab some? We'd love to see you tell us what your comments and your opinion is on it as well. Otherwise, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Cheers.